Sergio Altomare, welcome to the Financial Freedom Fast podcast. How are you doing today, my man?
Hey Matt, I appreciate being on. I'm doing fantastic.
Man, love to have you on. Love to share your story and have it inspire other people, and maybe they can follow the path that you have built for yourself and achieve the life and lifestyle that you have been able to afford for yourself. Why don't we jump off for those of us that are not familiar with who you are, what your story is? What is your story? What do you do right now? And how did you build up from there? We can start from wherever you think is best, whether it's the beginning, the middle. You take us through it.
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit about the kind of cliff notes of the story. And I like to think of like a cat where I've reinvented or had a whole lot of lives so far. I'm 47 years old, born and raised in Philadelphia, South Philadelphia. If you're familiar, wanted to get a little bit more dialed in. Grew up in the city, had a 2 year stint where we lived in Italy. Parents are Italian immigrants right off the boat. Father was a tailor, my mother was a seamstress. What I got from that was just being in a household and born of a family that is just anchored in hard work and wanting to do the right thing and providing for family. Grew up in the city. Anybody knows, either growing up in Philly or any inner city, it's not easy. It's a lot of navigating just the challenges that come with my general city living. Probably not nearly as bad as some areas are today. I went to Philadelphia public schools, got a job working for the Federal Reserve when I was in high school, my senior year. I wasn't exactly a great student in high school and really just did enough to move past and get the grades I needed to move from one grade to the next. But along the way, what I was learning was just how to navigate systems and really beat systems. In hindsight, it
Mm,
was smarter than I probably thought I was. And it was really that I was more bored. Kind of
mm.
correlate that with a lot of kids these days that are diagnosed with all these issues, whether it's ADHD and all this other stuff. If I was born now, I'd probably be heavily medicated. But anyway, so I got a job working at the Fed when I was a senior in high school. Eventually got into IT, just wanting to mess around with computers. I worked my way up through a pretty storied career path where worked in just about every facet of technology. Eventually became an executive working for the Fed. Along the way, I went back to
Mhm,
college, got a degree after I was turned down for one of a director's job that I should have gotten. But
mm,
anyway, it was one of those things where I've always lived with a chip on my shoulder and always needing to prove myself. And still that to this day. My wife and we met at the Fed. She was there. She
mm,
actually was a transplant from Los Angeles. If you can believe that. She was a professional opera singer, transferred
mm.
to Philly on a contract. And yeah, she had to get a day job because the music industry doesn't pay, literally didn't pay. And so, yeah, we hooked up. Her family was in real estate. Her father was an attorney, mom, was a director of Montessori school. And we got introduced to real estate. 2012 is when, going back a little bit, 2007 or 2004, I should say, was when I bought my first property. It was a duplex in Philly. That was a shit show. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. It wasn't zoned properly. It turned out to be a false start, I should say, in house hacking. I learned a lot. I didn't lose my shirt.
Mm,
Then when we hooked up, got into real estate where it was all about building our financial, just growing assets. I learned that through the Great Recession and seeing a lot of people that were just not doing well in that time. So that was
mm,
it got seared into me that there was a better way. I had to course correct myself in terms of living a life from paycheck to paycheck. Even though it was a really
mm,
good paycheck, I was just doing stupid stuff with it, living a
mm,
life of a bachelor and that kind of thing. So
mm,
we got together. I started buying multifamily properties, eventually got introduced to syndication to pull investors together, built that up, bought a bunch of other properties. My wife, Corinne, quit in 2016, the day job. I ended up quitting in 2017 and decided we wanted to build something more. And that
mm.
business had taken off. Ended up moving into self storage in 2018, selling off all the multifamily. And here I am now. Hearthfire Holdings is the name of our company. We went from multifamily property management, sold that off, and then now we're just self storage. We've got 14 properties. I think we're in, I don't know, 4 or 5 states, about 50 million in assets under management. And now the transition now is building a company instead of just assets and
Mm,
passive income, if you will, and more it's investing in our company and our personal growth. Along the
mm.
way, doing GoBundant, that's been huge in my personal development and growth, my wife as well. So yeah, and here we are, man, 2023, crazy world we live in, a lot of changes, a lot of things happening, but I feel like we're ready for it, man.
Dude, that is a good summary of like your entire life there. It seems like you almost lived this life, that like the back of your hand, man. So I I want to jump back to the beginning where your parents, they came from Italy, first generation here in America, hardworking, providing for the family. How did that shape your view on money?
Yeah, for sure. And it still to this day does. My parents, my mother, she just turned 87. So she had me when she was 40. My mother has forgotten probably certainly more than I'll ever see or I've seen so far. And to this day, we talk about stories of her childhood and the path to with her family. She comes from 9 brothers and sisters.
Mhm.
And my father was one of 4 brothers, so they didn't grow up with much of anything, and their approach was to be super conservative, to no debt, save all their money. Now there's different pieces that I've picked up on. I'm still very conservative when it comes to money, although I don't look at it the same way as they did. I not like my father with a shoebox in the ceiling, nothing like that, but I'm far more aggressive, but at the same time conservative in my approach. So certainly money matters has shaped me and my wife as well. Corinne, her parents were very judicious in how they managed their money and invested their money. So we're learning from the body of work of our families.
So would you explain how you said you're a bit aggressive, but you are conservative in your approach? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So take, for example, looking at where we're at right now in markets, capital markets, economic cycle, and everything. We were smart enough to get into real estate and buy properties, but when we got in, I did my own underwriting. And doing my own underwriting, super conservative in terms of estimating income, expenses, and acquiring properties. And when we decided that when we both had quit our job, and that was where I had built my bridge to leave the day job. Just to give you an example, I had like 6 months, I don't know, maybe probably up to a year of money to support whatever would happen. So that allowed me to quit my job with saying, hey, I got a year. If things don't work out, I can get another job. So that was conservative. But in evaluating investment opportunities, super conservative in underwriting. We didn't do anything crazy when it came to taking out debt and acquiring properties. And then in hindsight, when we pivoted from multifamily to self storage, I wasn't able to find deals that work. And in hindsight, in multifamily, bigger apartment communities or whatever, in hindsight, as I'm sitting here now and watching a lot of multifamily people that came into multifamily that are now in not so good shape because they were super aggressive and being over leveraged and all that. So when I say conservative, it's and I don't think I disagree with like mainstream perceptions. Anything that is not government, that has a government veil over it, if you will, whether it's insurance or the case may be, traditional wealth money management is considered more risky. So real estate from that standpoint is more risky. However, within the realm of acquiring properties in real estate, you can balance that risk. I teach and or I coach folks that have been in real estate and got into it, and see a lot of folks that just do napkin analysis on buying properties. Hey, income is here and expenses here, must be a good deal. Let me go out and buy it. So that's what I mean when I say conservative: is dotting
Yeah.
i's, crossing t's, sensitivity analysis, all that.
I see where you're at. And honestly, that's a relative term too, right? Because someone who was taught throughout their life to go get a job, save your money, save up what you can, and put it into a Roth IRA or a 401k and invest in the S&P 500. And maybe doing that is a little scary for them. What you're doing could be seen as very risky. But from your point of view, where you are looking out on other investors who, might be taking these riskier plays, what you are doing could be called conservative. And I think it's right. You want to be conservative. Just I was the same way. I built up probably maybe even more than a year, probably 2 years of reserve funds for myself to have before I was able to quit my job. And I always make sure every property cash flows way too much and has all these different expenses for capex and reserves built in. And you know what? That's how you buy good stuff that performs really well throughout any time. So I think that's a great philosophy to have there. So you were paycheck to paycheck, you said, for a little bit of time buying stupid stuff. Can you, when you were a bachelor, can
Yeah.
you tell me about that? What were you buying? What was the stupid stuff? And what advice would you have for someone out there who might be in that situation now?
Yeah, so I eventually discovered that I had potential and that I wasn't this idiot that was just running around drinking beer and smoking weed and doing that kind of nonsense. When I got around people that were operating at a higher level, different level of education and all that, I started to excel, right? I found my niche and it was in IT. Number one is follow your passion. If it's something you can monetize your passion, whether or not it's a two job or your own business, whatever the case may be, it's about monetizing your passion. Start with something passionate you're passionate about. So I was moving my average, just to give you an idea, my average raise or increase was probably about 10-15% per year. And that included promotions and all that. I kind of went up the ladder at a good clip overall. And this was over the span of 22 years at the Fed. And so when in doing that, for a while, I made my lifestyle adapt to my paycheck, right? If I got a 10% increase, my lifestyle increased 15%. And that is the model of, with a lot of people, even people that make a lot of money, just create a lifestyle that requires that. And so you never get into a mode of being able to accumulate assets because the conventional model of living is you rely on the company 401k, the pension, the social security. That's your retirement, right? It's not about accumulating assets on your own. So I had that mentality. There was a time where I bought in the same week. I bought now granted, it was a modest townhouse, my first kind of bachelor pad, or if you will, and a Lexus in the same week. And it was, at the time, it was 2007. Granted, it was like the week before the bubble burst. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, and then furnishing the house, I just bought whatever I wanted, used credit cards. I bought a home theater system that cost more than the rest of the furniture in the house. I don't have any regrets doing any of that because it was getting a lot of things out of my system. But eventually I had a shift and I said, and it was around the Great Recession, where it was like, holy shit, this was the biggest financial catastrophe in a lot of people's lives. So similar to a lot of previous generations that went through the Depression era, right? It's even if you weren't directly affected, you were affected by seeing the people around you. And it's just, holy shit, let me make some adjustments here and get out of that. So it was from that kind of changed my approach and my perception and really
Mm,
getting into reading more and following a different train of thought.
mm,
That was the biggest shift. So I went
and
from buying stuff to wanting to just build wealth.
to build wealth. You've mentioned to me in the past that you love reading books. Books are huge to you. You love to absorb information. Why not get info from the people who've already done the things that you want to do? What are some of those books in the beginning that you were reading that had some changing and lasting effects on you?
Yeah, and I don't have anything to compare it to, but I probably read more words than I would say 90, 95% of people. Like when my phone here is I don't have any games on my phone, right? If I have any kind of downtime, I'm reading content. I love
Mm,
books. I love audiobooks. Less these days in as many podcasts, but articles. I've got a Feedly, if you're familiar with RSS feeds. I've been building out a list of RSS feeds that is just an aggregation of sources of content. I've been building this out for 15 years, and
hmm,
I can consume every major headline in a very rapid pace. So I love to consume content that across a lot of different things, everything from health, travel, financial investments, whatever. But getting back to your question, believe it or not, who was it? Oh, man, I'm drawing a blank. Is it Dave Ramsey on the debt? What's the name? Total Money Makeover, I think. So that was pivotal for me because at the time I had $40,000 in credit card debt. And
hmm.
I don't remember where I came across that, but that was around the time where I said something's got to change. And I started reading that and I was like, man, this makes a lot of sense. So that was a big one for me in changing it. There was the staples, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. Excuse me. They were really instrumental in shaping my thought process. But it was also in my mid 20s, I had an anxiety, developed an anxiety disorder. My father had a
Mm,
lot of mental health issues and was bipolar, had some schizophrenia, eventually had Parkinson's. It was definitely a time in my life that was that shaped me in a lot of different ways. But anyway, as I
mm,
developed, I had an anxiety issue. I went through all the traditional Western medicine approaches, doctors, and all that. And at one point, I thought I was dying. But anyway, I ended up reading Secret, believe it or not. And it's
mm,
kind of a campy, more commercial approach to the law of attraction and just
mm,
frequency and all that. And that led me to meditation and
mm,
discovering Osho and that whole thing. And that journey in mindfulness and meditation was really what made me more self-aware and really gave me an extreme appetite for just wanting to learn as much as I can for myself and about myself. So now the things that I read are I don't read anything fiction. I've been told that I need some fiction in my life. I just can't. It's a struggle.
it feels like a waste of time almost. It's almost like watching TV for some that's how I feel about it at
Yeah,
least.
it is. And I get that. I give you like an example. My wife she loves fantasy and things like the Game of Thrones and all that. Even now with my daughter is 6 and explore some of that because being a dad and my daughter has been life changing and is
Mm,
a major purpose in my life. But
mm.
just like watching cartoons and stuff, man, unless there's like a real like lesson in life, man, my brain just refuses to pay attention. So anyway, yeah, we moved in our house a year and a half ago. I got boxes and boxes of books downstairs, and my wife is the same way. So we love reading content and just personal growth, man. Anything that you can take and learn from and add to the journey.
Love it, man. I'm the same way, all on the on especially with the fiction. I don't think I've read a fiction book in years. And I'm so focused on myself and self-growth and yeah, meditation. I've had a few guys on the podcast mention meditation, and I do it every single day. It's just so nice to be able to go back into that place that's always there, to
Yeah.
know you can sit back in there and be in a quiet place. And even if you have a question that comes up that you don't know how to answer, if you just go sit back there for a second, it's almost like an answer comes out of nothing. That's a beautiful place to be and a beautiful place to find. And Dave Ramsey, you mentioned Total Money Makeover. If you are in debt, instead of reading about buying assets and doing all this stuff, unless it's good debt, if you are in bad debt, credit card debt, car payment debt, anything like that, Dave Ramsey, I think, is a good guide, a good place to start until you get to that zero number and then start going on beyond that. So you went from 40K in debt to a little over under 50 around $50 million in assets owned right now in Heartfire Holdings, I believe. Let's talk about that. You mentioned that you've got this self-storage. You're not just focused on buying assets, but you're focused on building a company. What do you mean when you say that?
Yeah. There was a shift that happened with me where I realized that Yes, I can accumulate properties and build passive income and all that. And there was a
Mm,
time when we had our own portfolio of assets and we're syndicating properties and whatever. And I had reached the point where I had the passive income that could cover my fixed expenses per month. It
mm,
didn't make a whole lot of sense because it wasn't growing exponentially. It was a linear growth. And the biggest lesson that I learned in just following the uber wealthy, the top 0.1% of the top 1% is the code is exponential growth. It's not linear growth. So that's that if you look at watch any of the 7 to 8s on GoBum, it's always that hockey stick moment. And what I
mm,
was doing was building property here, property there, and whatever. And it just wasn't,
mm,
it was like, man, this is flipping slow. What is going on here? So I'm a process junkie, right? My background is IT. So I've been studying systems and processes to be more efficient and scale for a
mm,
very long time. I probably got an unfair advantage of a lot of people because of my background. So I
mm,
just questioned the system that I was building. And it was through, I couldn't pinpoint one single thing that was just like, the key is not just accumulating assets,
mm,
but the engine that builds and grows the assets. And in order for Corinne and I were doing it ourselves, right? We were serving in every role for the company, and that's exhausting. And I thought about it, and I'm like, man, there's no end in sight here. And you got to get to critical mass before you can remove yourself. Who Not How was one of
mm,
those books that was like, holy shit, this is brilliant. Scaling up different business books that kind of made us realize that we need, in order for us to get out of the way of what we were building, we needed to build a team and resources. And
mm,
at that time we didn't have any money to go out and hire people, so the next best way is to try and find partners. And so we brought in some partners to figure out the next level of growth, and there's all kinds of lessons to be learned in that model. But what it did help us reflect upon or realize that building a company that is anchored in real estate and assets is the best of all worlds. You're building value, you're building wealth and value in the assets themselves. As
mm,
you're building a company, it's a whole nother set of, it's a whole nother company or a whole nother source of wealth. The
mm,
focus then for us, for me personally, was less about, hey, finding that next deal and underwriting, to now, how do I become a better leader? How do
mm,
I build a team? And how do I play in the world that I should be playing in, which is not managing people, right? I have no
mm,
business managing people. I can provide broad vision and direction, but I'm not the one that's going to be managed. I will gladly give people direction, but that's a different kind of leader. It's more of a command
mhm,
and control approach than true leadership, right? Leadership is all about being enabling and providing that canvas for the people to do a lot of great work. And I can do that with people that can operate at a very high level,
mhm,
keep up with the speed of my thought process. So now the model is, I've got a really badass CEO, Corinne and I do, and we focus on the really big picture part of the company. And
mm,
so that's the next level, and
mm,
we purposely are building a company that does not need us. I don't want to be like, I love all the guys that are out there, and hopefully you get to be a huge celebrity in your space as well. I don't want to be a celebrity. I'm a
mm,
technician. I like to play in a closet and building something and come out and say, hey, look what I've built. I
mm,
don't want to be out on a platform. I even went down the path of exploring being starting a podcast or whatever. And maybe that will happen at some point. But
mm.
anyway, having the company that is like a Coca Cola. Who's the CEO of Coca Cola? Do you know?
No clue.
Neither do I. That's the beauty of it, right? So how many of them are there? And you want that, I want to be a company that is, or you don't know who the CEO is. That means I can move on. I can do something, whether it's exit the company, hire my CEO, and now I get the passive income from the properties and the business. How brilliant is that?
I think it is genius. And just so you know, just for your future, pretty common name, but the COO of Coca-Cola and president is Brian Smith. I actually I had an English teacher in high school named Brian Smith, so I don't think it's definitely not the same guy. But
Right.
that's who it is for you to know. So let's this company that you're building, is it a company you didn't want to be the one underwriting assets. You didn't want to be the one going and finding assets. So are you putting people in the places to, hey, you're the underwriter, you're the finder? What's your company structure look like?
So there are two different ways of building a company: is starting with sales or starting with a product. Being that my background comes from technology, I lead with product. That means
Mm,
that what I am selling is a fantastic product. So my emphasis is building a machine that can identify investment opportunities in self-storage. We're really good in self-storage,
mm,
identifying those gems in that asset class, and then being able to not just acquire those properties, but execute the business plans to generate the returns. A fantastic product, and then building marketing around that to sell the product is a style of company that we're building. The other side of it is the other method, I should say, is emphasizing corporate sales, marketing, and profits and taking it from the top down or bottom up.
mm,
I believe that that kind of resonates with my core values. Is bottom up is more sustainable. Bottom up is the right way to go. You build a fantastic product, you're going to be able to sell it. You build a great sales team and sales engine, you're going to be able to sell a lot. But
mm.
if you're not able to deliver, eventually you got a lot of churn in your clients and your customers.
Right.
So what we are building is a platform of great investments. And that's why I say, had I done it top down, could we be at 250, 500 million assets under management? Probably.
Mm,
But it's that, to me, it's more lasting, it's more sustainable by doing it from the bottom up. And all the great companies start with a great product, at least the companies that last a very long time and have that continuity. So there's
mm,
a couple of different ways of going about it. For me, it's about the customers first, and in our case, that's investors. They're satisfying creating that fan base that they want to invest in your company. When it's tied to performance, helps you sell itself. It's kind of want to piss on like German cars, but
mm,
Japanese like a Toyota and Lexus,
mm.
far better product than say a GM product, right?
Right.
That it goes to it's there's a saying in the car industry, and I don't want to like BMW and
Mm,
Mercedes, whatever. It sells itself. It's a fantastic product that the people that sell it, they don't have to bust their ass to sell it because the product sells itself. So that is the company that we are building, and it starts with having that be our core values, then from our core values, building the team and each division of that with
mm.
people that share those core values, same approach to business, and then it just trickles.
Now, just to clarify, in the view of your company, the product, you're talking about these storage facilities, like
Yeah.
top-notch investments. That is your product, correct?
It is the facilities and the returns that they generate. So the product is the asset and the management of that asset. Because
Of
just
it,
buying,
right.
not for nothing, but buying properties is easy. In fact, we're learning now that a lot of people had it too easy. If you could raise a dollar and deploy a dollar, you're going to go out and buy a bunch of properties. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to generate great returns with it, because
Right.
in a market that does fantastic, everybody does fantastic. The last 15 years of cheap money have minted a whole lot of millionaires
Right.
because it was easy. So everybody's got, hey, this is an easy way to do it. I'm gonna go raise a bunch of money, buy a bunch of properties. But it's really the execution of the business plan that
Right.
is the hardest part. So getting to the closing table isn't difficult, right? It certainly takes a lot of skill to get there, but not compared to executing on the business side.
And now on on the acquisition side, your investors, you're buying these mainly through syndication? All through syndication?
So it's been retail investments up until now.
Mhm.
We've reached a level of scale where our acquisitions model and our ability to identify investment opportunities has exceeded our ability to raise regular retail capital. Because again,
Mm.
we didn't start with a money raising engine. We started with a
Mhm.
performance engine. So now we got to backfill that up. So now our model is we're looking at family offices, a lot higher net worth, trying to get that average check size up
Mhm.
higher, and then making sure that our acquisitions pipeline and our capital pipeline are at the same level, because anybody that's in my business knows that it's one or the other typically.
If you have there's two things there. If you have a ton of money and you have no deals, you got nothing you're buying. If you have a ton of deals and you have no money, you got nothing you're buying. So I think finding that equilibrium there is a good deal. What's the average like check size that you are looking for from an investor at this point in the game?
So our average check size right now is 100,000, and that's over about 10 years of what we've been doing. I'd love to get that to from a retail side. Now we're looking to, as I mentioned, larger capital partners, family office institution, get the retail side 250 plus average
Mhm.
size. And then from a family office is going to be in the millions. And then institutions is going to be in the tens of millions.
I think that I know that you're gonna keep rocking that and that you're gonna have no problem there. Yeah, just keep freaking doing your thing, man, and killing it in that space. I love the strategy and I love the emphasis on a good product because if you build a good team that can find a good product and you can just keep finding good products, and your team is part of the product too, right? Because
Yeah.
you have to create a business plan, you have to execute on the business plan, and
Yep.
then that shows your customers, hey, look what we just did, look at the money we just got back to you, or however you structure that debt or equity, and you want to do this with us again, and you just get repeat customers. Keep rocking it for them. I love that. Love what you're building there. In the beginning you talked about watching the top 0.1% of the 1%. And I know we've talked in the past on comparing yourself to the top people. If you are doing something, why would you compare yourself to someone in the mid grade or the low grade? Why not compare yourself to the best and see what the best are doing and do what the best are doing? You have any thoughts with that coming to mind? Who have you looked up to and compared yourself to? And what has that, uh, how has that changed the person that you are?
Yeah. So anybody that has and I hate to use in a financial sense, from a financial and business sense, I look at a few things. Who's had a company that has been sustained for decades, right? A long period of time. And then from an individual standpoint, the net worth. So anybody that's got like a
Mm.
T in front of their net worth is probably somebody that you should emulate. You
Anybody
know,
that has a what? I missed that there.
A B is in their net worth is in the billions. So they've done a few things. It's
Right.
I'm less more a guy like a Ray Dalio or
Mm.
Warren Buffett than a Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not a one hit wonder kind of guy, and nothing against Mark Zuckerberg. I don't know squat about him, but he became a
Mhm.
billionaire like overnight versus some
Mm.
other folks that kind of had to create it over the course of a long period of time. And really, it's about their principles, philosophies, and approach to what they do. What are their habits? Elon Musk is a great example. Elon Musk, if, I don't care if you like him or hate him, but
Mm.
if you follow his work ethic and his purpose, it's not about it's not certainly not about money, right? The guy can sail off into the sunset and be fine
Right.
for probably 1,000 years.
Yeah.
But if you look at what drives those individuals and its impact, for one, right? They want to impact in their own way. And then what are some of the habits? They have that huge work ethic. They're not, they're not, it's not all selfies on cruises and or boats,
Mm.
stuff like that. It's not like your musician that is just flaunting their money or wealth.
Mm.
What are their habits? They're number one is you can go on YouTube and look at some of the principles. Even a guy like Tony Robbins. I don't know if Tony Robbins is in the $1 billion range, but what are the principles that they live by? And you find patterns. And I love studying patterns. It's not, hey, I want to be like a Bill Gates or whatever. It's what are the commonalities of the people and how do they get to where they're going? And if you just listen to what they're saying and watch what they're doing, it's they invest in people,
Mm,
in ideas and impact. And if you learn how to do that, those are the kind of skills, especially now when we're getting into the world of AI and just being more conscious of what can AI replace or substitute in my life for the
mm,
skills as humans, as the intellectual and the sentient beings that we are some of the things that we need to emphasize, where are the skills that we need to prioritize in our lives is certainly those patterns and those things. But then it's also about where's your heart at? Are you doing the right thing? And making sure that the purpose of what we're building is growing. For us, it's not just about, and when I say us, Corinne and I, it's not
mm,
about a certain level of wealth. Like people say, well, what's your number? I don't have a number because that's not what I'm not, I don't measure my life that way.
right.
About impact and community. We love community. So what we're trying to build is really pattern or company in our personal lives being about impacting the person next to us and then
Mm,
seeing that snowball and that broader impact. So
mm.
anyway, those are people that you can model and emulate. And anybody that has that's in a space, that pick whatever space that you're in. If you're in podcasting, it's Joe.
Right.
It's what is he doing that I can be doing, and
Right.
that.
If you're lifting, maybe you're looking at Arnold Schwarzenegger, or maybe someone new from these times, and look at the greats, see how they did it, follow what they're doing, and if you want to talk to like even try talking to these people and get involved with what they are doing, and they can have that impact on you. Power of proximity there. So you were talking about impact a little bit, and we're gonna hop into our final questions after this. Impact. If you were king of the world, if you could wave a magic wand right now, what would be the impact that you would leave on the world, whether it's community, city, state, entire planet? What
Yeah.
is the impact you want to have?
It's education, and not in a necessarily a classroom setting. We're passionate about personal growth and development, right? And we talked about health, wealth, family, spirituality,
Hmm.
accountability, whatever. It is about exposing as many people to all the tools and resources to grow and develop their own journey. So many people live life by creating a box, and it starts through no fault of their own, through parents and your upbringing. Is you create these little box and then you struggle to get out of it. As your perfect example being that, where are you at right now?
Right now, I'm back in New Jersey. I just got back from Barcelona.
All right, so perfect example. It's kind of like breaking out of your proverbial box
Right.
and exploring. And when you explore, you learn. Our vision and what our dream is from an impact is to create a education based, and it's not like a necessarily a classroom. The vision is still taking shape, but it's all
Mm,
about what we've learned as, not just, it's more about how to learn and how
mm,
to grow and exposing that there's no one size fits all. I'm not a believer in too many people, even some really smart people will read one book and then that becomes their bible for whatever it is. Atomic Habits or Miracle Morning, I must do this and that's the only way. There's a lot of different approaches to things. So that's our dream, and for what we do now, we don't look as that we are, it's strictly about wealth. It's a lot of what we do is about that, but educating our investors on what we've come to learn and the people that we learn from, and sharing that. So everybody's got an obligation to share, build
mhm,
a community around sharing and learning. You do that, and as long as it's anchored into sharing the good side of life, right? Not,
mm,
there's always been a battle of good and evil. If your heart is in the right place and you want to truly improve the lives of your community and the world around you, the opportunities are there to do so. That's our goal. Our dream is to provide as much influence or sharing and contributing to an education, just a learning and development community out there. It's still taking
mm.
shape. We'll
Yeah.
see where we go with it.
I think that's beautiful. The basis behind it's not even like you're saying what people should learn. It's maybe how we should learn, how we can learn, how we can share with each other. If you've Everyone has something that they are good at that someone else does not know how to do or doesn't even know about. And if you can just say what you feel and say whatever is on your mind, I'm sure as long as it's not negative towards the other person, somebody will take something from
Yeah.
that. And not everybody needs to learn, or maybe every you want to put your story out there and whoever it relates with, and then everybody else can do. Maybe some people talk about art and some people talk about sailing and other
Right.
people talk about investments, and everybody's got their own thing. I love that and can't wait to see that come to fruition in what you're building. So we're going to move on to our final questions here. Sergio, what is one actionable step that our listeners should take today to start on their path towards financial freedom?
I think it starts with identifying what you're passionate about. For me, the one thing is about self awareness habits. That's what goes back to meditation and all of that. And then
Mm,
finding what you get up, what, if you pay attention to where your emotions are at and where you are operating at a truly happy level. And I'm not talking about going back and looking at your Facebook post or anything like that. It's really coming from your core, following your true passion, and then understanding how you can potentially monetize that. Now,
mm,
there's a double-edged sword there because oftentimes people say, "All right, I love to paint, but I don't want to sell my paintings because then it becomes a job or whatever." And I don't want to get into all that, but it's all about doing what you're passionate about. And financial freedom to me is it's a misnomer. And what I mean by that is I work hard and I put in 70, 80 hours a week.
mhm,
But there's a pretty good chance that I can stop doing that and just take my assets and invest them into some dividend stock or something like that and live a pretty comfortable life.
mhm.
However, I don't know that it would be fulfilling. So
Right,
to me, it's going after what fulfills you and then determining what, maybe we remove the word financial part of it, what freedom looks like. If you're struggling with money and just doing stupid shit, then first thing you got to do is fix some habits. That was me, where I just heard that and reading the Dave Ramsey and then adjusting those habits. So starts with getting some better habits and then getting better alignment around your relationship with money and how you view it. Chasing money for the sake of money or saying I'm financially free or whatever may result in getting to a place and not feeling as fulfilled. You don't want to
right.
get to a place and be empty. So it's about identifying the purpose, identifying what you're really passionate about, and then running that direction and just figuring out what it is that is driving you to be free for the journey your life wants to take.
Like, why do you actually want it? What is it that you're gonna do? When I was back and I was like 2, 3 years ago when I first found out about this stuff, I was like, "Man, once I'm there, I'm just gonna spend my time. I'm gonna go work out every day and I'm just gonna sleep in and I am gonna put all my time into working out and eating healthy and doing that." And I quit. So my job was done. I was financially free. I could live off my assets. I went and I slept until 10 o'clock every day and I was working out and I got in great shape. And then it just all hit me all at once. And I was like, what am I doing? This is cool, but there's no growth. And I think one of the things that we feed off of as humans and we need is some type of growth, some type of challenge in everyday life. So, like, I went on this trip, I expanded my vision a little bit, expanded my mind, and I came back just ready to rock, ripping into my wholesaling business, ripping into the acquisition side of my business too, just ready to get going. And honestly, after this conversation, inspired to see this path down the line of building a team of like guys to, because right now I'm the deal finder, I'm the deal executor, not as much on the execution now. I have people for that, so I could see that building out. Yeah, 100% true what he's saying there. Know why you want to do it and follow some of the things. If you need to get out of debt, that total money makeover could be a good step for you.
Yeah.
So, Sergio, my last question for you: What is one question that you wish I would asked, or one topic that you wish I would have covered? And how would you have answered that question, or how would you have expanded upon that topic?
I think it's probably what do I tie my purpose to? And the answer to that question would be my daughter. I got
Mm,
a 6-year-old little girl. And when she was born, it was a game changer. And while I thought that I had the direction was, and at that time, it's in hindsight, I didn't have really the direction that I need. But it's really now is to set an example for her. And now I got
mm,
this little human who my wife and I, we are shaping her life and how the example that we set is going to be what she carries on. So now it's also about, so our purpose is defined on not just our personal growth, but the impact that we're leaving into the next generation, which is my daughter. And so I think that ultimately, what we as a people and society need to recognize is that we are an example. If you're a leader in your household and leader of yourself, it's set an example for leaving the world in a better place than we found it. That's the key part of all of this. It's not about, how many doors you have. It's not about numbers. It's not about that. It's really about, are we living a life fulfilled, and are we living a life that is setting an example for future generations? Because Lord knows we need it. The world is crazy right now.
mm,
And it's always been. It's an evolving craziness, but there's a
mm,
confluence of just all kinds of chaos out there that we got to get it under control, man. And like you look at just something like AI, the acceleration of change. It's not just change is happening, but we're on a hockey stick moment. Change is happening faster and faster. And we have an obligation to just live a life that is, number one, worth living. And
mhm.
number two, is setting an example. And so I don't know. That's the question and answer I'd have for you.
I love that, kind of the why, the passion on what you're rocking on right now. And like, I've heard that a lot. Like the moment that and it didn't seem like this was the moment that something that clicked for you. It clicked a bit earlier, but a lot of investors that I've talked to, things have clicked for them when they had their kid, and it was like a big wow. Wow, I got to be a man of character or a woman of character. I got to get my investing game down. Like, I got to build a life for this kid. I got to be able to financially support them. And it's not only the financial, it's the
Yeah.
emotional, it's the health, it's the bringing happiness into their lives. Love it, Sergio. Man, we've dug deep. I'm really happy to have gotten all this time with you to dig into your business and to find out more about your life and what's made you into the person you are and the company that you've built. It's amazing. I love it. Where can my listeners or watchers find you online or reach out to you if they have any questions for you?
Yeah, so a couple places. So our company is Hearthfire Holdings. Easiest way to get to our website is investwithsergio.com. That just is just a shortcut. I'm on LinkedIn. If you want to shoot me an email, Sergio at hfireholdings.com. I read all my email. I'm not I don't have the following where I can't keep up with things. So if I could be of help of anybody for anybody, then reach out. And if you heard something that I said and you feel that you can contribute to me, then I appreciate that as well, because it's life is the little penny bowl by the register. It's give and take.
And for the people out there, one of the ways to get involved with people that might be on a higher level than you is to be able to contribute and bring something to the table, bring some value, even like just from a deals perspective. If you're buying multifamily or storage, whatever it is, like you bring value to the table, other people can bring value. So if you can bring value to someone else, they might be able to provide you with some information, some mentorship. And don't think of it as what I give them, they got to give me something back. Just try and help people out, see where you can do that stuff. And yeah, good messages all throughout the podcast. I love it. Yeah, Sergio, man, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you for being on the podcast, man.
I appreciate it, man. It was a lot of fun. Keep doing what you're doing, brother. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it, man. So, from the Financial Freedom Fast podcast, this is your host, Matt Amabile, and we are signing off. Stop.